Dra'Gora, Draenor's Honor. Chapter 1. The Echoes of Tanaan. The drums of war had long ceased in Draenor, but the silence that followed was no peace. For the Mag'har Orcs, the dry winds of the broken world carried whispers of tyranny. The Lightbound, who once promised salvation, were their tormentors. The light's touch, once pure and healing, now twisted minds with fanatic zeal. The orcs who stood united against the Legion's terror now faced a different kind of horror, a tyranny of righteousness. In the depths of the Tanaan jungle, a different kind of rebellion stirs. A bleeding hollow orc leads a small but fierce band of Mag'har Orcs called the Dra'Gora, sworn to defend Draenor's honor. Determined to resist the Lightbound's oppressive rule, it is a desperate struggle for survival, but it is also a battle for the soul of Draenor. Drom Gronnheart, the bleeding hollow orc, stood atop a jagged cliff, overlooking the dark canopy of Tanaan jungle. The wild heart of Draenor beat loudest here. The air filled with the sounds of insects, the rustle of leaves, and the distant roars of wild beasts. But beneath it all was an unnatural quiet, a silence that gnawed at him. It was the silence of fear. He turned to his warband, the Dra'Gora, who were hardened orcs of different clans, Bleeding Hollow, Shattered Hand, and Warsong, and many more, united not by blood, but by purpose. At his side stood Ogre Ironspine, a hulking, shattered-hand berserker with scars crisscrossing her arms, and Kargul Earthbreaker, a Warsong shaman whose eyes gleamed with the fury of the elements. Drom had known many warriors in his time, but these two were like his siblings in battle. "We pushed towards Gorgrond at nightfall," Drom growled, his voice a deep rumble that echoed through the clearing. "The Lightbound patrols have been closing in. If they catch us here, we'll be skewered like pigs." Ogre spat on the ground, her eyes narrowing. "Better to die with the blade in our hands than bend the knee like the others. They call themselves the Lightbound, but I see only madness in their eyes." Kargul clenched his fists, the air around him crackling with elemental energy. "The light has twisted them. They believe they're saving Draenor, but all they do is burn it." Drom nodded. "We've all seen it. They come with their shining banners, their righteous hymns, and leave nothing but ashes and corpses in their wake." He turned to the rest of the Dra'Gora, raising his voice. "We are the last free Mag'har of Tanaan. We fight not just for our lives, but for the soul of this world. We fight for Draenor's honor," he said out loud. For all he knew, the rest of Tanaan and the orcs in it had already succumbed to the oppressive power of the light. A roar of agreement echoed through the trees. For a moment, the fear in their eyes was replaced by something fiercer: determination. They moved through the jungle like shadows, every footfall silent, every breath measured. The foliage around them grew thick and wild, but there were signs of corruption. Trees scorched by light-infused fire, and patches of earth that glowed with an unnatural radiance. It was here they found the first signs of a massacre. Bodies of Mag'har Orcs, young, old, and all other ages, lay strewn about, their skin charred and their eyes hollow. At the center of the carnage stood a Lightbound Justicar, one familiar to Drom, her armor gleaming with holy radiance and her sword dripping with blood. High Justicar Elena, she was called, a once respected Draenei paladin, now a twisted vessel of zealotry. Drom's hand clenched around the hilt of his axe, his knuckles turning white. He signaled for the Dra'Gora to hold back, but Ogra stepped forward, her voice a growl. "We should kill her, now!" "Not yet," Drom hissed. "We need to see what they're doing." Elena raised her sword over a wounded Mag'har who whimpered at her feet. "You will be saved," she said, her voice gentle but laced with madness. "The light forgives all sins. Accept it, and you will be made whole." The orc spat blood at her, defiance still burning in his eyes. "I will not bow to your false light." Elena's face twisted with sorrow, as if she genuinely mourned his refusal. Then, with a swift motion, she drove her blade through his heart. The body convulsed, and the light seared through his veins, leaving nothing but a smoldering husk emitting steam. Drom's breath caught in his throat. He had seen death in many forms, but this was not just death. This was mockery of mercy. "We move now," he whispered. "Kill them all, but take Elena alive. I want answers." The Dra'Gora descended upon the Lightbound patrol with the fury of a storm. Ogra lunged forward, her axe and blade fist flashing in the dim light as she cleaved through a Lightbound soldier's neck. Kargul called upon the spirits of the jungle, the very earth erupting to ensnare their enemies, crushing bones and shattering limbs. Drom found himself face to face with Elena. Her eyes, glowing with holy light, met his. For a moment, he saw the Draenei she once was, proud and honorable. They once stood united against the Legion, but now there was only fanaticism. "You think you can resist the light?" she spat. "It is the only truth. The Mag'har must be purified." Drom wasted no time. He charged and roared, swinging his axe in a wide arc. She blocked it with her shield, but the sheer force of the blow sent her staggering back. "The only thing that needs purifying is your twisted mind." They clashed in a blur of steel and sparks, the jungle around them lit by the flashes of Kargul's lightning and the burning radiance of Elena's sword. It was a brutal, savage dance, Drom's raw strength against her relentless zeal. In the end, it was Ogra who ended it. She came from behind, ramming her blade fist through Elena's leg, forcing the Justicar to her knees. Drom stepped forward, his axe poised at her throat. "Why?" he demanded. "Why do you do this? What happened to the honor of the light?" Elena looked up at him, her expression serene despite the blood streaming down her face. "We do this because we love you. The light sees your suffering. It wants to save you, but you resist. So we must break you." Drom's grip tightened on his axe. "No," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "You don't want to save us. You want to control us. The light has become your leash, and you, its dog." With a swift motion, he swung his axe, severing her head from her body. As the sun set over the jungle, the Dra'Gora gathered the bodies of their fallen kin, chanting prayers to the ancestors. Drom stood over Elena's corpse, his face a mask of sorrow and rage. "This war will not end until one side is ash," Kargul said quietly, coming to stand beside him. Drom nodded in agreement. Then we'll burn, but we won't break. We are Dra'Gora. We are Draenor's honor." In the distance, the banners of the Lightbound could be seen, advancing through the jungle. The final battle for Tanaan was coming, and the Mag'har would be ready.